Mike Florio joins us on loan from Pro Football Talk Live on NBCSN. Of course, NBC Football Night in America Insider. Pro Football Live on NBC Sports Radio, weekdays 6 till 9 Eastern. Mike, can you assess what the Rams have done here in the last couple of weeks and how that sort of, does it present them differently, how much differently going into the season?
Well, I think Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator, has his fingerprints all over these moves. In his book that was published last year, Son of Bum, he at one point mentions that he believes he'd be a pretty good evaluator of personnel, and I think that Sean McVay, the head coach, who has turned over the defense to Wade Phillips, has let Wade Phillips look at the guys they have and decide, what do I need to do to make this into a championship-caliber defense? So pick up a couple of top-shelf corners in Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, say goodbye to a guy like Robert Quinn, a good pass rusher, not great. Alec Ogletree, a very good middle linebacker, but the thinking, I believe, and this is all being driven, I believe, by Wade Phillips, let's make that secondary better. Let's have Aaron Donald create a lot of havoc in the middle, and he's eventually going to get paid a lot of money to continue doing that. And that's the way you build the defense that's going to complement that offense. So I think this is Wade Phillips, quasi-general manager of the Rams, saying these are the guys I need to get the defense to where I think it needs to be.
How big of an overhaul are we going to see in Seattle?
Well, it started with the coaching staff, right? They basically fired everybody except Pete Carroll on the coaching staff. And you could look at it and say, well, does that necessarily mean they're going to overhaul the roster as well if the coaching staff's the problem? Well, it sure looks like they're going to. Richard Sherman likely out today. Michael Bennett already gone. Earl Thomas available in trade. I feel like, Dan, what they're doing now is they're taking advantage of the fact that they finally had a non-playoff season. They went 5 straight years in the postseason. They got to the final 8 each of those 5 years. And they were 9-7, but they didn't make it. And I think that's an opportunity to rip off a couple of Band-Aids. They've done it with the coaching staff. They're doing it with the roster. I think we're going to see that roster swing toward more offensive than defensive, building around a franchise quarterback who's still smack dab in the middle of his prime. Russell Wilson told me during the season he wants to pull the Tom Brady and make it to 45. So that's the guy you build around. And now you use the draft to go out and find your next Cam Chancellor, who was a 6th-round pick, your next Richard Sherman, who was a 5th-round pick. And the next time the team gets to a championship level, you got to pay some guys, but then at some point you move on from those guys. And I think that's the cycle of having a franchise quarterback. You build out around him, you make changes as you need to, but you're confident you're always going to be competitive because you have a quarterback who's a difference maker.
Did any questions or the question get answered of what the Browns will do following the Combine?
No. I mean, they can do – look, how can you not take a quarterback with the first overall pick? Now, if they pounce on a free agent like A.J. McCarron, and Peter King had the report this week that that's who Hugh Jackson still wants, if they give McCarron a real contract that makes it clear he's the starter and not just this year's Mike Glennon who gets supplanted by the number 1 overall pick in a month and a half, how can they not take a quarterback? They passed on Carson Wentz 2 years ago. They passed on Deshaun Watson last year. There's 5 guys, and who knows which of the 5 is going to be the best. But if you don't take a quarterback at 1, you're passing on maybe 1 or 2 of them before you come back around again at 4. I don't know how you don't take a quarterback with the first overall pick. I know that Saquon Barkley steam is out there, but running back is a position where guys get injured all the time. You're going to put all your eggs in that basket, and then he's potentially going to be injury-prone, and you're not going to know he's injury-prone until he gets to the NFL level. I just think quarterback makes the most sense. But this year, there really isn't that guy who stands out. It's 5 different guys, and it all depends on who they really like. But I think that they have to take seriously the prospect of using that first overall pick on a quarterback and finally getting a guy who can be their quarterback for years to come.
Peter King was on the show recently. This was Tuesday, and this is what he had to say. This was in regards to Josh Rosen at UCLA.
To me, the NFL has an inherent distrust of rich kids. They just do. And you have to prove to them that being rich doesn't matter. Josh Rosen's family is wealthy. His great-grandmother founded the Wharton School at Penn. His father is a very successful surgeon in Los Angeles. They've got a lot of money. So a lot of people in the NFL just sort of roll their eyes at that to begin with.
What do you make of that, Mike?
Well, so should Peyton Manning and Eli Manning have not been drafted? I have a feeling that Archie saved some of his football money. I think that could be a factor because I think what the NFL wants is players who are completely and totally all in because this is it. This is their ticket out of poverty. This is their ticket out of either working in a coal mine or working in a steel mill, which I think is one of the big reasons why so many great football players came out of Western Pennsylvania, because I'm going to go all in with football because I don't want to go 3,000 feet underground. So I understand that there would be hesitation, but I don't know how big of a factor it is, because if you're a good player, you're a good player, regardless of whether you come from financial means or not. But it's just one of the – I can't say it's not a factor, but I don't think it should be an overriding factor for any player.
The combine questions for Darius Geis, where the LSU running back, and he said that he was asked if he liked men, and basically, is your mom a prostitute here? Where does this story go from here?
Well, here's where it goes. Probably nowhere, because what the NFL typically does, and we've seen this 3 times now in 5 years, Nick Casa in 2013, Eli Apple in 2016, Darius Geis now. The NFL issues the statement, it's inappropriate, it's unacceptable, we'll look into it, and then nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes. And the Falcons were the team that asked Eli Apple the question, do you like men, 2 years ago? And they were disciplined in that they were trained, they were talked to, they didn't have any tangible consequence. So if there isn't going to be punishment, and DeMaurice Smith suggested yesterday on PFT Live, ban the team from the Combine next year. Now, the NFL is never going to go that far, but if you threaten to take away picks, if you take away a 5th-round pick, if a team does that, you're going to see an end to this. So the NFL says all the right things when it happens, but the NFL has yet to do anything necessary to deter teams from doing it in the future. That's the challenge for the NFL. Real punishment. Require them to record every interaction with every one of these players at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, private workouts, meetings at the team facility. They tape every practice already. They can tape these interactions. It's available to be checked, and if there's any crossing of the line, then there's real consequence. And I think taking away draft picks is the way to get teams' attention.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.
All right, Dan.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk on NBCSN.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.